So keeping with the theme of Drishti, I'm going to talk about three very important perspectives of artificial intelligence, something that has been part of our life and will remain part of our life. The first thing I want to say is, if I were to title this interaction and talk, I would say it would be BC to AD. Why BC to AD? BC to AD is a dating mechanism which says before Christ and Anno Domini. So we are aware of this dating system. But BC to AD in the era of AI, actually, in my view, says before ChatGPT and after DeepSeek. So this is a different system, dating system, that we are entering into. AI has pervaded all walks of life, and it's making a lot of change, and very positive change, sure enough. But the first perspective I want to give to you is about the concerns that we all should think about. The negative aspects, if you will. Amongst the 6 which I want to highlight, the first one is about the misuse in society. There are inadvertent misuses and there are willful misuses. Inadvertent misuses would be related to biases. So for example, technically in finance field, many of the top managers are white males. Now if a black female, very qualified, applies for the job, is likely to get rejected because this combination has not been seen before. Now this is an inadvertent bias of artificial intelligence. Think about nurses. Typically they are females. If a male applies for the job of a nurse, he is likely to get rejected. Now this is an inadvertent bias. So this is at least inadvertent. There are many places where willful misuse of artificial intelligence is being done. And the worst example is that of warfare. We are aware that there is a technology called swarm technology, which uses army of drones for whom a picture is fed, and the drones work in tandem to kill that person, notwithstanding any obstacle that comes in between. We can easily think about the biological warfare. We can easily think about genetic modifications which can cause a lot of damage. Not only that, we are all aware of what happens with DeepSeek. A lot of misuse of personal life, a lot of misuse, misrepresentation, which can even lead to civil unrest. These are all negative aspects. Many psychological damaging things are also happening with artificial intelligence. The first one I would like to talk about is what I call brain drain 2.0. We know brain drain was a term that we assigned for people leaving the shores of India and going for greener pastures. Nowadays, we are simply not using our brain. And so that's a brain drain 2.0. There is definite decrease in conscientiousness, which is a very human behavior, and it is thoughtfulness that we are losing out. There is also loss of human-to-human interaction, and this has led to a lot of loneliness. In fact, there are ministries of loneliness which have been set up in the UK and Japan. What we also know is that there would be, if not already, loss of purpose. If you think of cleaning the room and also writing poetry and composing music that has been done by AI, what is left for us, one may think? And so these are all psychological impacts that we cannot overlook. Then there are 2 technical areas. One is called black box of artificial intelligence. Many AI experts say that they have no clue as to how a particular solution is arrived at when you pose a question to artificial intelligence. Think about AI-based driverless car, very intelligent car. It meets with an accident, kills a person. Who is responsible? How do we serve justice? So if you ask a question to some GPT or LLM model of AI, and it gives you immoral or incorrect answer. Who is directly responsible for this? Nobody knows. So this is a black box. We have no idea what goes on inside. And the fourth part is AI hallucination. AI actually creates and makes up data that it doesn't know where the source would be put at. And so if you ask a question and you get an answer, and if it is AI hallucination, then the responsibility, it is difficult to put responsibility onto any system. So this is a very dangerous game that we can play. The other two are very important. The fifth one is that of environmental damage. Artificial intelligence is very hungry and very thirsty. The cooling that is required for the server farms takes a lot of water. In fact, it consumes so many liters of water, which is potable water, high quality water. Example is, if you take a picture and send it to just 50 people in your group, and they applaud you and give you thumbs up and you are very happy. All of this process, which is very simple, looks almost trivial, has consumed 200 ml of water. Not only that, it is also energy guzzling. The amount of energy that is required to power this activity is same as making 1 cup of tea. And so we have to be very mindful. In fact, the entire AI global activity is consuming water which is 6 times more than that of annual consumption of country of Denmark. So this is very expensive for planet Earth. And we are mindlessly getting engaged into sharing photos and videos. We are not even thinking about this. We are causing irreparable damage to Mother Earth. So AI might be very interesting. It surely is, but it is very expensive and we have to be mindful about this. And of course, the last one, which is oft talked about, is the unemployment that it causes. And this is definitely real. One idea that I want to introduce here is that of Hibakusha. Last year, the Nobel Peace Prize was given to an organization, Japanese organization called Nihon Hidankyo. This is an organization that works for the sufferers of atomic bomb. And Hibakusha is a Japanese word which says people affected by explosion. I think another 10, 15, 20 years, and God forbid, but we could have AI Hibakusha, where there will be people who are affected by the explosion of AI. There will be loss of purpose, there will be loss of jobs, unemployment, and this is something that we have to be very, very aware of. Now, this is one perspective. There are many other things, but these 6 I thought were important. The other perspective, second one out of 3, which I want to share with you, is that of, we keep hearing about artificial intelligence becoming conscious, becoming sentient, becoming AGI, becoming much more than human beings. In fact, there is a view that artificial intelligence is going to kill humanity. It's going to be overpowering humanity and so on. And I want to state here that I think this will not happen. And the main reason I think that will not happen is because artificial intelligence is mimicking natural intelligence, which is driven by data. It does not have its own sentience. It does not have its own willpower. And I want to state this with 3 standpoints. One, from legal standpoint, there is something called actus reus, which means what? The action that has been done. And then there is mens rea, which means why it was done. And so mens rea is also important, that is pertaining to why. Actus reus is about what. I think artificial intelligence moving further up with lot of data would be focusing on what and not why. Second example I want to give you is from philosophy. In Vedanta and yogic philosophy, you have Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama, and Vaikhari. 4 stages of speech. Para, Madhyama, Pashyanti are why one wants to talk. And Vaikhari is the externalization of speech. That we have been able to copy. Because we know that. We know the what part, we don't know the why part. And if we don't know something, how are we going to mimic it? Consciousness, sentience, is something that we don't know. In fact, science has said that consciousness, at best, is a very complex quantum phenomenon. We don't know much. How can we mimic something that we don't know? The third example I want to give you is scientific, which are other natural phenomena. Here I would say when we are walking, 15% of knowledge is registered with our brain. But other 85% is not into the conscious brain. If we think about an iceberg, a classic cliche trite example, 15% is visible to the naked eye, but 7/8 of the iceberg is below. Only 5% of matter and energy as we know it is known to human. But other 95% is called dark energy and dark matter. We don't know. If you look at the inner space, not outer, in case of DNA, 8% of DNA is functional. Other 92% is called junk DNA by biologists. We simply don't know. What are these pointers? If we are learning something from nature, I would argue that we don't know is a much bigger chunk than what we know. And what we can copy is what we know. So the argument would be that it will be virtually impossible for us to make AI sentient. I'm not saying difficult, I'm saying impossible. These are all historical scientific pointers. How do we prepare for this onslaught of AI? I would say there are 5 points. The first one is we need to move from analysis to synthesis, which means learning contextual, focusing on emotional quotient and going even beyond the agentic AI. The second step would be that we need to do continuous learning. Unlike yesteryears, we will have to focus on being there, learning all the time. And this would also mean interdisciplinary learning. It would also mean multidisciplinary learning. This major and minor approach of universities is something that we'll have to really imbibe if it is not given by the university system. The third one I would say is Bhooshan's AI upskilling rule. What is this rule? I would say in the AI era, we are going to be splitting any activity in 3 parts. 10%, 80%, 10%. The first 10% is asking the right questions, which is more like prompt engineering. The next 80% is going to be done by the technology, robots, and AI, which is the grunt work. That is not where we are good. That is where technology supersedes. And the third part is when results are being spit out by the system, AI, we are going to discern, we are going to pick the right ones which are useful for us and for our purposes. So this 10-80-10 rule, as long as we are focusing on the first 10 and the last 10, I think we are fine. Also, we need to remember that we are not competing with AI. AI is working in the 80%, we are not working there, so we are not really competitors. We are cobots. In the sense, we work with artificial intelligence and we make use of artificial intelligence rather than being fearful of it. And the last one I would say is we need to have a clean room mechanism. What is this? If you think about semiconductor industry, before you step into a fabrication lab where semiconductor chips are made, you need to undergo cleansing of your body. So all the dust and dirt needs to be removed before you enter. Similarly, if we are going to make use of this artificial intelligence, we need to cleanse. How do you cleanse and sanitize? I think it would happen with yoga, pranayama, and meditation. Only that will give us the poise and the equanimity of mind as to how to use it ethically. So the ethical AI would be facilitated only by yoga, pranayama, and meditation. In fact, this is not just a wishful thinking. Max Planck Institute in Germany, which is a leading institute, has already shown that with meditation, there is a stronger connection between PFC, which is the logical part of the brain, prefrontal cortex, with amygdala, which is the instinctive brain. And the stronger the connection between the two, better you are in terms of taking logical decisions. So this cleansing needs to be done. And in conclusion, what I would say is 2 points. One, I don't think that AI will become sentient ever. If logic, if law, if philosophy and other scientific pointers are to be taken into account, then we can say at best we might be 15 to 20% in knowledge. The other 80-85% we don't know, and hence we can't really copy and mimic. So I don't really subscribe to this dystopian and apocalyptic view that AI somehow is going to win over humanity. What may happen is AI will be misused by people to kill people, but AI itself will not, because the will to survive, survival instinct, and the zero-sum game that we see in biological evolution is simply missing in artificial intelligence. Second point that I want to leave you with is, if at all we were going to agree for some time that science will somehow evolve and we will know the other 85% as well about consciousness, about sentience, etc., then my question is, if we are that sentient, if we are that technologically advanced, would we really have the need to create artificial consciousness? This may sound like more of a philosophical question, but at that point we might have evolved to a level that we don't really require this kind of artificial intelligence or artificial consciousness. So think about these 2 points, and these were the 3 perspectives that I wanted to put forth about artificial intelligence to you, for you to mull over. Thank you.